The spread of state and federally listed noxious weeds on public, state trust, and private lands threatens biodiversity and native plant species, decreases forage and habitat for domestic and wild animals, and causes economic hardship for landowners. Invasive species in the United States are estimated to cause damages of $137 billion annually, with non-native invasive weeds making up $34 billion of that amount, as reported by Montana State University Extension Agricultural Economics. Southeastern Arizona has relatively small infestations of noxious weeds compared to other areas in the West. This continues to give us a unique opportunity to be proactive and control weeds so that it doesn't become economically prohibitive. This training will cover the following topics: a few different definitions of types of weeds, why we should be concerned about noxious weeds, the different components of integrated weed management, and finally the identification, biology, and some different control methods for these different weeds. Here you can see three different definitions for weeds. The first definition of a weed is a plant species whose negative values outweigh its positive values as judged by a human. An example of this might be a dandelion in your lawn. The second is a noxious weed. These weeds are undesirable non-native plants that are regulated in some way by law. There are both federal and state regulated weeds and weed lists. The third is invasive species. Alien species whose introduction does or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm to human health. The types of weeds that this training addresses are noxious and invasive species. As I mentioned in the beginning, the negative impact of noxious weeds in the United States is both economic and environmental. This section will review some of the documented impacts in 2 other states due to the noxious weed problem. Spotted knapweed is one of several invasive knapweeds originally from Eurasia. Spotted knapweed first appeared in Montana about 80 years ago and now infest up to 6 million acres in that state alone. Research done in Montana during the early 2000s found the following when studying spotted knapweed infested lands. There were significant forage losses due to competition between native plants and spotted knapweed. Researchers also documented significant increases in water runoff and soil loss off the site. The term exponential growth is often used to describe how noxious weeds advance over time and geographically. An example of this is yellow star thistle in California. Because of the long, stiff spines at the base of the flower, yellow star thistle interferes with livestock and wildlife grazing and causes chewing disease in horses. It is the largest roadside weed problem for California Department of Transportation. It competes with other plants for soil moisture and devalues the land. In this third section, we will look at the components of integrated weed management. Integrated weed management means using a combination of different control methods. They include prevention, early detection, mechanical, cultural, biological, and chemical, in this case, the use of herbicides. The first component of integrated weed management is prevention, early detection. Awareness and knowledge of species of concern is critical. A small infestation is easier and less costly to control. Periodically surveying your land will help ensure target weeds are not present. If plants are found, it is easier and more economical to treat small patches than to wait until the infestation becomes larger. The second component is mechanical. Hand grubbing, mowing, tilling, and burning are commonly used to physically destroy weeds or interfere with their reproduction. To be effective, treatment must take place before seed production. Don't plow or disc some species like Russian knapweed and whitetop, as it spreads the rootstock and will propagate even more plants. It also risks moving rootstock to new fields by rootstock clinging to equipment. Mowing at the flower bud stage will keep plants from blooming and setting seed. If equipment has been in an infestation, wash the equipment before moving it to a new location. Cultural practices include the use of materials or techniques that reduce noxious weed populations. Examples include mulching, rotational grazing, and establishing good vegetation cover. Biological methods involve the deliberate introduction and establishment of enemies to reduce the target plant's competitive or reproductive capacities. Insects are the most common agent released against noxious weeds. Plant pathogens such as fungi are increasing in use. Sheep and goats have been used throughout the Southwest and are effective in reducing densities and limiting spread of certain weed species. Cattle have shown promise in Greenlee County. The purpose is not eradication, but a reduction in densities and rate of spread to an acceptable level. The last component of integrated weed management is chemical. Herbicides are an important method of treatment when control or eradication is the management objective. Environmental concerns make it critical to follow all label instructions, site directions, and safety precautions when using any herbicide. The last section of this training focuses on noxious weeds of concern in southeastern Arizona. Most of these species exist in southeastern Arizona, but a few are plants to be on the lookout for in adjoining counties. Each plant will be described for key identification characteristics, growth habits, and some integrated weed management options for control. Originally from Eurasia, Russian knapweed was accidentally brought to the United States as a contaminant in crop seed in the late 1800s. The Arizona Department of Agriculture lists Russian knapweed as a state noxious weed. Russian knapweed is known to occur in northern and eastern Arizona. It is found in Greenlee and Cochise counties. Russian knapweed is a deep-rooted perennial plant. The roots can be up to 25 feet deep. One of the key characteristics in identifying this plant is that the roots are rhizomatous and are black in color at the soil surface. When the roots are pulled up, several nodes can be seen where new plants can grow from. This feature results in the plants forming dense colonies. Plants grow from 1 to 3 feet tall. Leaves can vary in shape from smooth margins as shown on the top photo to deeply lobed on the bottom photo, depending on the stage of growth. The flowers are cone-shaped and vary in color from pink to lavender, rarely cream color. The flowers in these photos were growing in the same field. Bracts surrounding the flowers are smooth and papery with a rounded or pointed end. Along with the black roots, the bracts are key in distinguishing Russian knapweed from other species of knapweeds. Russian knapweed can grow in a variety of habitats. It does well in most soil types, including saline soils. In Arizona, plants occur in cropland and rangeland. Russian knapweed infestations also occur along roadways, in washes and river bottoms, and in residential areas. Russian knapweed is known to cause chewing disease in horses, but not other livestock. There are several control options for Russian knapweed. Plowing and disking should be avoided if possible, as cutting the rootstock will encourage more plants due to the extensive underground root buds. If mowing, mow at flower bud stage to avoid seed formation. Always clean equipment before it leaves the infested field. Grazing by livestock, with the exception of horses, will give temporary control and keep plants from flowering. Like yellow star thistle, Russian knapweed causes chewing disease in horses while growing or dry. Check hay before feeding it to the horses. Chewing disease is irreversible and will ultimately lead to death. Use recommended herbicide at labeled rates during the pre-bloom to bloom stage. And following the above treatments, plant with competitive species to increase long-term control. Yellow and Malta star thistles are similar and sometimes confused. The top photo is yellow star thistle, and the bottom photo is Malta star thistle. Things that both species have in common are that they are annuals, have yellow flowers, and they have an extension of the leaf that runs down the stem, giving it a winged look. These two star thistles germinate either in the fall or spring. Yellow star thistle grows from 2 to 3 feet tall, while Malta star thistle grows 1 to 2 feet tall. One difference between the two that helps identify them are the spines at the base of the flowers. Yellow star thistle has stiff white spines that can be up to 3/4 inch long. Malta star thistle spines are less than 1/2 inch long and are tinged purple or brown. Yellow star thistle is found in Greenlee County, while Malta star thistle is found in Greenlee, Graham, and Cochise counties. For control of the star thistles, mechanical treatments are effective. Plowing and disking or mowing pre-bloom can prevent these plants from going to seed. One word of caution for Malta star thistle is that early in the season, plants will put out one flower in the basal rosette prior to the plant bolting a flower stalk. Remember to clean equipment before moving it to a new location. Hand pulling, double bagging, and taking it to the landfill is another effective control method. Grazing by livestock, with the exception of horses, prior to flowering works in some cases. Like Russian knapweed, yellow star thistle causes chewing disease in horses. Herbicides are effective if using them prior to flowering. African rue is a many-branch perennial that has an aggressive, woody root system similar to Russian knapweed. The height rarely exceeds 1 to 1.5 feet. Stems are fleshy. When crushed, the stems have a bitter and disagreeable odor. Leaves are alternate, smooth, and divided into linear segments. The flowers are white with 5 petals, and the fruit is a capsule. African rue is found in northern Cochise County. It's originally from North Africa, and first reported infestation in the United States occurred near Deming, New Mexico in the 1920s. Because African rue has an extensive root system, herbicides are the only effective treatment at this time. Onion weed is a herbaceous perennial plant that looks like an onion, but it is not. It has fibrous roots, not a bulb. It also does not smell like an onion. The flower has 6 white petals with red-brown stripes down the middle of each petal. It is a prolific seeder with growth and germination of new plants practically year-round. It occurs widespread in Cochise County. There had been 2 infestations in Greenlee County, but those have been eradicated over the years. Hand pulling, double bagging, and taking onion weed to the landfill is an effective control method. Certain herbicides are also effective. White top is a member of the mustard family, with flowers consisting of 4 small white petals. White top grows from 1 to 3 feet tall, depending on its environment. The leaves clasp the stem. It reproduces from seed and underground rhizomes. White top occurs in Greenlee County. With an extensive root system, similar to Russian knapweed and African rue, plowing and disking of white top should be avoided. If fields need to be worked, clean equipment before moving it to a new location. Grazing by livestock gives temporary control in some cases. Certain herbicides are effective and should be used in the pre-bloom to bloom stages. Bull and milk thistle are biennial plants, meaning they germinate and form a rosette the first year and flower and die the second year. Unlike our native thistles, non-native thistles can grow very large and the spines can be tremendously large. They are mainly located in the northern part of the state at this time because of the wetter, cooler climate. However, they do occur in irrigated pasture in Greenlee and Cochise counties. Digging out thistle rosettes during the first year of growth has been successful. Some will be missed, so follow-up in the following years is important. Certain herbicides are also effective. Saharan mustard is much larger in size than the mustards we are used to seeing. The key identification feature is the stiff branching of the flower stalk. This stalk breaks off and tumbles, spreading seed as it goes. Saharan mustard is found in Graham County. Hand pulling or use of herbicides prior to blooming are both effective control measures for Saharan mustard. Sweet resin bush is a low-growing, medium-sized shrub, usually less than 3 feet tall. Its small leaves are divided into 3 to 5 narrow lobes, which look like tiny turkey tracts. The shrub usually sheds its leaves during dry seasons and blooms in late winter to early spring. Hundreds of small daisy-like flowers may hide the green leaves. The name sweet resin bush comes from the disagreeable odor of the flowers and the drops of resin exuded by the woody stems. Sweet resin bush is found in Graham County. Hand pulling when the soil is moist removes plants. Certain herbicides are also effective. Once mature plants are removed, there are usually many seeds that germinate in the open ground. Follow-up treatment is essential for the plant to not reestablish. Bufflegrass is a major problem in the Sonoran Desert. It does not tolerate prolonged freezing temperatures well. One plant was found several years ago in the Artesia area of Graham County. It was sprayed right away and controlled. More recently, it has been found in the city of Douglas and in the Cascabel area of Cochise County. Hand pulling is effective for bufflegrass, but it is important to minimize ground disturbance. Once the ground is disturbed, seeds already present in the soil will germinate. Many herbicides are effective. A solitary plant of the next two species were found in southeastern Arizona in the past. They were sprayed or hand-pulled immediately and have not been seen since. Camelthorn is a spiny, many-branched creeping perennial. It reproduces by seed and by an extensive, deep-penetrating, horizontally spreading root system. The leaves are alternate and hairy on the underside. One plant was found several years ago in Graham County in the Fort Thomas area. Camelthorn currently has a scattered distribution throughout the state. It poses a serious threat to Arizona. Besides agricultural and ecological concerns, camelthorn tears up highways, walkways, and building foundations. Dalmatian toadflax is a creeping perennial that grows up to 3 feet tall. It reproduces by seed and an aggressive underground rootstock. The leaves are alternate, waxy, and clasp to the stem. The flowers are yellow and are similar in shape to snapdragons. One plant was found outside of Bisbee, pulled, and not seen again in southeastern Arizona in the last 20 years. It is originally from Europe and probably was introduced as an ornamental. It is a problem in several communities along the Mogollon Rim. In summary, there are 6 components for a successful weed management program. The first includes knowing how to properly identify weeds of concern and being more aware of what is growing around you. The second is taking action early when only a few plants are present to prevent the infestation from growing larger. The third component is taking a careful inventory of the weeds. What species are present, how dense is the infestation, and how many acres does it encompass. Once that is known, map the infestation for future reference. Fourth, work with neighboring landowners, local governments, and weed management groups to plan how to deal with these weeds. Fifth, utilize integrated weed management principles in your control measures. Lastly, continuously monitor and evaluate infestations and control methods. These weeds are difficult to control, and there is no short-term solution. Persistence in dealing with these weeds is the key. For more information about noxious weeds, contact your local University of Arizona Cooperative Extension Office.